Thought Equity runs a cloud-based platform as a service, and what we do is that we focus on taking the content, digitally mastering it and putting it into the cloud so that we can make the content intelligent through metadata, and then license not only the raw material for monetization by integrating it into other feature films, TV commercials, but we also take the finished material such as different documentaries that people create, and we syndicate those out to multiple screens.
So tell us about, for example, for the New York Times, they create video for their site, but you're helping them monetize it in other ways. Explain that.
The New York Times is it's an interesting use case. I mean, driven specifically by the broadband market and different screens that are now connected through the tablet and mobile. With those specific applications, that's a great example of a newspaper that as they've moved into video-based production and rich media, displacing a lot of their photography and traditional text stories with video, they've put together their particular productions in a way that they now syndicate that out into multiple screens. So they're high-def files that then get sold into different news documentaries, different video textbooks, and that scale is possible because they store the asset in a way that it can actually is push-button automation and delivery to all the different licenses and use cases.
So you guys are doing that for them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they manage all of that onto on our platform. They didn't want to have an internal kind of CapEx to put a licensing team together to find the new opportunities, so they brought that to our team. We're one of the world's largest licensors of content. We operate out of 42 different countries and multiple languages.
So tell us about the NCAA.
So the NCAA is it's an interesting example of how to really maximize the rights value of a collection. When the NCAA first started, they only generated a few $100,000 in royalties for their entire archive, which was every game from men's basketball championship history to from 1908 to present. The content just simply wasn't accessible, and with broadband access, if we digitally mastered the content, we thought that we could put it online and make grow the rights value from the traditional television live rights, which were billions of dollars through their partnership with CBS, into moving that now into broadband so that people could have kind of a video-based Wikipedia to that particular collection. In that process, when we just put the games online, the average user only spent about 93 seconds looking at the classic game. But what we found is that when we went through and added metadata, broke down every game, every player, by name, every time the whistle blew and there was a judgment call, and just allowed people to use the intelligence of metadata at a frame level to where they could go in and they could find and experience anything that was of interest to them. The average user then went from 93 seconds of dwell time to 14 minutes. And so now that's it's a pretty significant increase in the live rights value, or the non-live rights value, and it lives year-round into a site that the NCAA is now adding all of their sports. We work with 3 of the major studios in which they're starting to add a lot of content intelligence and add a lot of data to change the way that people consume the asset. Specifically, they're starting to put metadata into the timeline to create trivia tracks and timeline games that now are displacing the kind of physical DVD purchase and are now allowing people through iTunes Extras and other types of outlets to have a more rich experience. Kind of the data is powering everything from their Blu-ray Live experience to the digital download, where they want people to download more content and own it rather than just rent it. And they're just changing the experience specifically through the intelligence they're adding.
What is your process, just briefly, around theatrical films, like for Sony, for example?
So Sony is a great example. With what we do with them is they use our metadata editor that's part of the T3 platform that Thought Equity runs. We take their specific feature films, we run them through our particular engine, and it drives about 75% of the metadata in an automated form, from facial recognition to rights and clearance use. And they're using that specifically to manage everything from the post-production and delivery service all the way through to the iTunes Extra. We have a discrete number of hundreds of different tracks of metadata at a frame level that we go through and add to add the content intelligence directly and to change the way that they're using their content and pushing it through their system.
So what's next for you guys?
So what's next for us is that we're now focused. Right now we work with a lot of the majors, about 400 major different media companies worldwide. and ranging anywhere from BBC to NHK to CBS. And as we go through and work on those large libraries, you're going to see the latter part of this year where it doesn't matter to us if you have one content hour or millions of content hours. You're going to be required to digitally manage and distribute that content globally if you want to participate in the monetization across broadband. And so you're going to see our platform open up down to the individual content owner and the content hour to make that so that everybody has the marketplace and technology to monetize their content.